Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lawn Care CEO podcast. My name is Dan Ralphs, one of the coaches here at the Lawn Care CEO. I'm joined by now what feels like a guest, the CEO of the Lawn Care CEO, Aaron Suttenfield. Today, we have an awesome guest out of Lakeland, Florida. We'll introduce him in just a minute. As we're digging into this conversation today, you know, one of the things that we're always trying to do is we're trying to educate our CEOs, and I'm just becoming honestly, over the last year, Aaron, and primarily because of you, because of Jennifer, our kind of CPA, CFO on our team, I'm becoming way more committed to and connected to the financial understanding of what it means to run a great lawn care business, what the financial health is to run a great lawn care business. And because if you don't get that right out of the gates, you're going to lose. Like, it just hard stop. No matter how good your culture is, no matter how good your leadership is, no matter how cool your equipment is, like no matter how good your marketing is, if you don't get the financial health of your business understood and figured out and right, you're going to lose. Now, I remember, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, you know, don't tell me money doesn't matter. Like he said, money is like oxygen. It's not what matters in life, but try living without it. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Like, I don't think money is what matters in life. It's not the big thing. It's not the reason we should wake up in the morning. But dude, we got to breathe. And I've met too many lawn care business owners who aren't able to breathe, aren't able to get their breath. And so today we're going to dig into some of that. So we're going to talk about how you can make the material cost for your year go down as a percentage of your revenue. We're going to talk about which is a key factor in decreasing your cost of goods, which is like at the center, kind of the centerpiece of having a really healthy financial business. So stick around for that. And we're going to introduce a really successful fertilization, weed control, pest control company. So stick around. So this is going to be an awesome episode. And so that brings me to our special guest today, Brian Christensen. Brian Christensen is the CEO of Brian Pest Control, not Brian's Pest Control, Brian Pest Control, which is way cooler, by the way, than Brian's Pest Control. Delete the Z there. And Brian is I think he said in the pre-show that he's a 27 year vet in the lawn care space, is absolutely crushing it in Lakeland, Florida. Brian, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
I already like Brian. Like, yeah. I didn't tell him this. Now I'm confessing my love to him, but I'm a fan of Brian's primarily because I can tell he's settled. I can tell he's running a good business, and to me, you can kind of, Aaron, do you find this that you can kind of smell a good CEO when you meet him? It's kind of like, yeah, this smells like a good CEO. But we just met a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So Brian, tell us a little bit of your story. Let everyone know kind of where you started, where you're at now, and what maybe a bump or two has been along the way.
So I started in the lawn care industry in June 29th of 1998. I was friends with a good high school friend of mine. I think I was 20 years old. And his dad owned a pest control company, and I was working at the local sheriff's office here, actually, under Grady Judd. So I was working at the Polk County Sheriff's Office, and I just wasn't going anywhere. You know, I wanted to try to go up the ranks or be a road deputy or something like that. My friend says, "Hey, my dad's got a position open at his pest control company for Lawn Spring." So I interviewed with it, and they were a little bit adamant or hesitant, I should say, about not bringing me on board because we were still kind of goof offs a little bit, you know, in our 20s. And
I feel like it's almost a requirement to be a little bit of a goof off when you're youth to be a good CEO. Yes. Is that a requirement?
Yes, I don't know, but so they ended up hiring me, and I've actually never looked back. You know, I worked for them for almost 14 and a half years. And then in 2013, January 1st, I started my company from the ground up, the grassroots ground up effort. They ended up selling theirs. So at that time, I started my own, and here I am, you know, 13 years later or something.
Brian, if you could go back 13 years and give that young upstart that's like, remember the time when you went and like submitted your business paperwork or you got your first truck wrap? If you could go back and give that guy some advice, what would you tell him?
Perseverance. Perseverance. Just continue to persevere because life, the Bible talks about, the perseverance of just living life and just going through life. And because in business, you're going to have ups and downs. Even Aaron knows being a CEO of whether it's customers, employees, personal issues, whatever it is, you're always going to be dealing with something. So perseverance for me has been a huge characteristic that I definitely would um, tell my younger self. Obviously, I learned it and continue to persevere, but that's definitely something I would focus on as far as that goes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That reminds me, I
Hmm.
was talking with a client this week, and we always start every call with a positive focus. What are we feeling good about this week? And um, he rarely has a good positive focus. He's sort of down. He's had a tough year, and he he was telling me all the issues, right? And they were employee issues and equipment issues and client issues and weather issues. And I mean, he like ran the gauntlet of all the issues, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
And I said, well, I wish I could tell you those could go away, but they won't. It's what we've signed up for, right? And I think you're right when you said perseverance. It's like, to me, if it were easy, I don't think we would have the opportunity we all have,
correct.
right? Like if it were really easy to run a company and start a company from scratch, and Steve Jobs likes to say, you got to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur because it's hard.
Yeah,
And if you're not wired a little differently, the moment it gets hard, most sane people quit.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
like, why am I doing this? And it doesn't have to be crazy. We don't have to have insanity in our businesses, and we're hopeful that we can help a world figure this out. That's
oh
our
yeah,
mission.
yeah,
But it is a little bit chaotic in the beginning. And Dan and I, we're in a startup right now with the Lawn Care CEO. 2 years in, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary a couple weeks ago, and
It's funny,
it's a
Aaron.
lot.
I was chatting with a CEO who's now very successful. He runs a $5 million company, and was feeling. He said, "Dan, I'm feeling a little guilty that when I take days off and my employees are working." He said, "I feel still a little weird about that." And I said, okay, here's the thing. The brilliant part about capitalism is that any one of them can go do what you did. Just tell them to sign up for it. Tell them to sign up for 12 years of not paying yourself, and then followed by 3 years of struggle and fatigue and customers. Like anyone can sign up for it. And the reward at the end of the rainbow is someday you can employ people and money happens without you there. Like it really, like I'm like a capitalist apologist. It's like the capitalists, when they do this work, it makes the entire world richer
correct.
because you showed up and you put your will against the world and your will won.
Yeah.
And it's a very cool thing.
I actually have that same kind of issue, right? Not issue, but mindset as well. We're on the eve of archery season starting in October 1st in the Midwest, and I'm in Florida, but I hunt up in Southern Illinois and Indiana. So, I have that same feeling because October 1st, I'm probably going to be in the deer woods somewhere, and my guys will be working, and most of us are family here. So
Mm,
I always have that mindset of knowing, that not taking it for granted, not taking them for granted too, whether
sure.
it's financially or, you know, micromanagement or lack of stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we're we're very mindful of stuff like that. But I can definitely
You're like, I get it. I
relate
feel
to
that
your
too. I'm
guy.
like,
Yes,
ugh. I feel kind of
yes,
weird about being out here while my guys are working and
yes,
enjoying my life, and they maybe don't get to take as many days off as I do. By the way, I'll give you the quick advice that I gave him. I said, number one, make sure you're clear on what your job is
sir.
and do your job really, really well.
Yep.
And if you can do that and take days off, good on you. And by the
Yeah.
way, you're going to say the same thing to all your guys.
Oh yeah.
Understand what your job is, and if you can do your job and take days off, good on you.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like we're all on board for that. And he did. We defined his role and got really clear on it.
Yes,
I
sir.
love it. That's great bit of advice. So welcome to the program. You talked a little bit about where you were. Tell us about where you're at now. Tell us a little bit about your operation.
So we mainly service Lakeland. We do surrounding communities, not too far. I think our farthest community might be like 20 miles away from our office and from our facility. We do lawn care, which is fertilization. We're big dry fertilizer guys here, and with our warm season, St. Augustine or Bermuda or Zoysia. Um, we're big dry fertilizer, Harold's Polyon, good quality fertilizer as well. Um, so we do that. We do pest control work, and then we do some termite work as well. But we're very diversified in our area, and most of our lawn company or most of our lawn customers, whether it's residential or commercial, they are monthly services that we do.
Love it. And you said earlier you're running about 5 or 6 trucks at this time.
Yeah, I run 5 trucks. Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
5 trucks, 6 employees, and we're a big team. Any big jobs we always attack together. There's a couple little 220 home subdivisions that we do, or like I said, colleges or stuff like that, athletic fields. We always attack those as like together, like if we were fire ants or something like that, where just get it knocked out. Because I'm sure Aaron realizes the same as I do. You're like, man, I should have brought more people to this job 15 years ago, you know. So
So it feels like you have this really cool culture, for lack of a better word, a
yes,
really cool group of people that you've gathered together.
yep,
Um, like maybe one of the superpowers of Brian Pest Control is, hey, we got this team of all-stars. Tell us a little bit about how you gathered that team, how you crafted that team, how you're keeping them motivated, engaged.
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that part of the business as well.
So when I first started hiring people years ago, um, and we don't have a lot of turnover. Like I think I've had like 4 people work here and leave in the last 10 years. I don't have very high turnover. And what I do specifically is I target people that I want to hire. And it's usually people that I know. Like one of the guys that works with us, he was a truck driver for Publix supermarkets, and he's a younger guy. Um, at this point, he was like 26, 27 when I hired him, and I hired him for so he could stay home with his family more and didn't have to, work the crazy trucking schedule as a new operator. And then paying people, you need to pay people a fair wage, and we work Monday through Friday. We have we for our size company, my guys don't work probably more than 42 hours a week, from the time they walk in the door in the morning to the time they lock their truck at the end of the day on Friday. And that's important to me because their family life, their health, their mental health, and their physical, spiritual health is probably more important to me than us going out and trying to acquire more business, um, and trying to acquire more customers. Well, honestly, what I've always done here is I've always put the Lord first. And from
Yeah.
day one
Yeah.
for us, it's just been, we are super blessed. The Lord has given us a name, and, we are super fortunate. We still have to pick up the phone, call people. You still have to deal with, employees. Still have to deal with personal issues or equipment break. I got 3 spreader sprayers in the shop right now because I'm having problems getting parts from Z Spray. And it's
Yeah,
just
those
like,
things don't go away just because
no,
we're good
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Those are still real things.
yeah,
I don't think God's designed it to where like, oh, everything's going to get easy for you now that you're on the
yeah,
right track. Um, and I think Aaron, like I love this point because it's like when you do put things in the correct order, like you prioritize things correctly in your business, it doesn't mean that I've often said that the business is kind of a balance between two opposing ideals, where it's like we have to think about the needs of the many and the needs of the few and find the sweet spot in between. Like sometimes it's like we got to take care of this individual. We can't take care of them forever because they got work to produce. And there's like this kind of balance that we have to strike. But it does seem like when you put things in the proper order, it works. And I don't know why that is. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I love everything you say, Brian. This is the first time I've met Brian, so I'm learning about him as our guests are. And a couple things you hit on. I think it's very important today. There's a lot of studies that have been done about, this new generation, right? I mean, we're employing a different generation, and our generation and the generation, ahead of us, I think we're all about the same age, probably close. They valued work. And it was, I go to work so I can provide for my family. And I think this new generation, in a good way, is valuing their family and saying, hey, work, you're going to be in this position and family's going to be first, or not always family for every one of them. I mean, I think we've got some great guys that value their family, but it's time away from work is very valuable to this generation. And so if you're running a business, you got to know the rules you're playing by.
Yeah.
Like you can say, hey, I'm going to work 60 hours a week, but you're going to have employee issues if you're doing that. You better find a way to balance, that work-life balance. The one thing I love about pest control and lawn fertilization and weed control is it offers a margin where you can pay someone a great living wage in less than 40 hours. Brian, I've got a guy who will make over $50,000 this year, and he won't work more than 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
And we provide health care, we provide retirement matching.
That's what us as well. Yeah. Paid
vacation in there. And so, I don't think our technicians are gonna, become, billionaires, maybe not even millionaires, although I've showed them the path to being a millionaire, if they want it. But it is, I think we have to understand that we've got to build businesses. And Dan, we talk about this three-legged stool of business, right? Where it's, the client, the technician, the person, the people that work on your team, and the owner. How do we build a business that balances those three things where we win, all three win? I had a conversation this week with someone that I'm going to do some partnership stuff with. And I told them, and I believe this is like all partnerships, both partners have to win or it's not sustainable.
It's like a marriage.
And,
Like a marriage. That's
I
a
hate
great point.
Business model where there's an unbalanced, partnership. Now I coach plenty of businesses where the owner's losing, not sustainable. Yeah. I coach a lot of businesses where, not a lot, but some businesses where the owner's probably winning a little too much and the people are getting hurt a little bit, not sustainable. And we got to find a balance there. And I think it starts with being very transparent. We talk about if you're an employee of a business and you're listening to this podcast, which I could see that happening, you should be pulling for your owner to have a net profit of 15% to 25%. You don't want to work for a company that's losing.
Correct.
That's a bad model. Yeah. And so, I know it's popular in American culture right now for some to, hate capitalism and hate the greedy business owner. And by the way, right, some business owners are doing their share of making us look bad, right? Mm-hmm. So stop being that business owner if you are that one. We've got to pull for these businesses to do well because they provide jobs. By the way, small business employs over 50% of all the people in America. Yeah. So it's incumbent on us as business owners to get this right. So if you're listening to this and you're a business owner and you're not, and you're like, I'm probably not a great business owner right now, probably not providing great work-life balance benefits, I'm not doing that. Dude, figure it out. Figure out how to raise your profits and get your margins to a place where you can afford those. Brian, you're not going to have Brian's retention rate of employees without creating a career. What Brian described that he has, Dan, is a career job.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Correct. And we treat everybody like it's our foundation. My men that work for me, obviously I mentioned that they're family one way or another, except one. And other than that, it's just creating that culture. I think culture is huge. You can tell, like the Nick Saban culture at Alabama, or, just different culture.
By the way, that's a lot coming from a Florida fan. That was a pretty big concession.
Yeah, it's huge culture. And it's not just, people can spot a fake. So you need to be genuine, real. Accountability is huge, just different stuff like that, and just empowering people. Like, hey, you can, like you said, you're working 35 hours a week and you're going to make over 50 grand. You have time to go do something else too if you wanted to, or grow this a little bit more if you wanted to.
It's a great gig.
Brian brought up Nick Saban, so I have to take a chance. I love Nick Saban. Could give two hoots about Alabama.
Sure.
He's ruined a lot of Saturdays, so we honor those who've we should have a moment of silence for all the Saturdays that Nick Saban's ruined. But I think him as a leader.
He won, I think, 6 or 7 national championships, right?
7, I think.
7. Okay, 7. All right.
Don't remind him, Aaron.
I think it's important for people to realize something about Nick Saban that's really cool. I've studied him a little bit this year, and I was just it dawned on me. I'm like, how did he keep going after 2 or 3 or 1? Like the number of coaches that have won more than 2 national championships in college football is like very slim. It's elite. It's an elite group. And the reality is, if you research Nick Saban, he had a purpose. That his purpose was not to win national championships. His purpose was to mold young men into great people in society, great fathers, great husbands, to great employees in society, right? Great people. And he's in a sport that, has a predominant culture of, fatherless homes, and, people are coming into this program who probably have never even heard the word culture or accountability. They've been told they're great all their life. And then they come there and they realize there's other people just as good. But the reason he kept going is his purpose wasn't to win national championships. Now, he won national championships because they were disciplined. I think it was, they were playing Notre Dame in the national championship. They were up by like 40 points in the 4th quarter with like 7 minutes to go. And AJ McCarron, I think, was the quarterback, and they messed the snap up, and he and the center get in a fight on the field. Because they messed that up, and he just created a culture of doing excellence. Yeah. But it was because he wanted these boys to become great men. And I think that's what allowed him to win so many championships, because if it had been about winning his purpose had been to make a lot of money and win a national championship, he would have stopped at championship number 1.
Sure.
For the record, Aaron, Nick Saban 7, Bear Bryant 6, Urban Meyer 3, and then a list of others that have done 3. So giving a little Florida props there to Urban Meyer.
How many at Florida? 2 at Florida and 1 at
Florida, one at Ohio State.
Yeah.
2 at Florida,
I love it. I want to get on to other topics. I could talk about culture and those kinds of things all day. It really does. It feels like when you're in it, and this is, by the way, why financial health becomes so important, because until you have enough air to breathe, it's very hard for you to take care of anyone else. It's the old, airplane analogy where it's like, put your mask on first, then we can help someone else. And so it's very cute of us who, are all sitting in businesses where we have plenty of, financial health for us to talk about culture, but we have to get there first. And so when I'm working with clients as a coach, very often I was, I got on one of my clients just the other day. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to be a part of a losing business where we keep having negative numbers
This
posted
is great.
in the year. I'm like, no. We do. We literally will make more money if we close the whole thing down. And I think if you're any business owner, you've had months like that where you lost money. Literally, you paid other people to do the work.
Yeah.
And so, there are lots of different ways we can impact this. And the way that I wanted to I know that this is something that the reason we reached out to you is because this is something you do that I think is kind of cool and unique that not all companies do. And that is figuring out the way to maximize the value of the spend on material by using kind of an EOP or a planning process of negotiating with vendors. Walk me through that kind of little rhythm that you have.
Sure.
And how that's helping you. At the end, I'm going to ask, you may not have the number because I didn't ask you about it, but I'm going to probably ask about like what kind of savings is there? Is it 2%? Is it 12%?
Sure.
What are you thinking comes out of that? So just kind of give us the setting of that. And then,
So for me personally, like when we're talking about financial health, I think it's inclusive of many different, spokes of the wheel. And I think EOP, early order, is a spoke of that wheel. So for me, I've been thinking about EOP for probably a month at least now, which it starts
so you've been
October
thinking about
1st.
2026 purchasing for somewhere in July, you started thinking about that.
Correct. Just like I think about quarterly taxes before I owe quarterly taxes or payroll taxes or anything like that. I think of, I look at our financial health and I'm saying, okay, because I just got on Monday a load of 20 tons of fertilizer sitting in my barn, and we'll go through that in about 3 weeks, and I'll order about 15 or 20 more for all of September for our work for September. So I have to think about those things, and part of that is early order, because you're getting significant savings. The percentage wise, I think it's somewhere around 10%. And so for us, if I'm spending $100,000 on early order, $10,000 is a lot of money. So for us, they usually, and early order too, for some companies is great because they can take terms out till next year. You can, which is, like I said originally, the golf market's huge on early order. The lawn care on our side, the residential quote side, I don't know anybody else other than myself that does early order. And I know plenty of dudes that are running businesses like I am, that I don't know if they don't have the foresight. It's kind of like you guys talking about coaching. I think if they see the benefit of it, and if they have financial health, then it's good for us. We always pay ours off, by the end of this calendar year. I don't like carrying it into the next year.
No, I don't think that would be wise, right? Because then you're starting to layer expenses, and that gets wonky. Yeah,
I'm very meticulous when it comes to making sure I don't owe anybody any money. But early order, you're able to extend that out. And so we started ordering early order, and plus you get benefits of it. I mean,
But what do you mean benefits?
So the benefits, with Enview, which used to be Bayer, we several different years, we've gotten several $1,000s, $3, $4, $5,000 in credit. A couple years I bought, I like to offshore fish in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. We offshore fish out there. So I bought a bunch of tackle, fishing rods, reels. One year, the next year, we were able to take that same money that we got from EOP, and my wife and I and my daughter, we went to Europe, to France and Italy, during the summertime. So
and this isn't part of that 10% you're saving. That's in addition to the 10% you're saving.
In addition, correct. Yes. So there's incentive to, that they're giving you, incentives, whether you can get gift cards or, whatever it is. Each FMC has something different. MView has something. Syngenta has something. So, and plus for me, I'm able to look at, I wish fertilizer was on there, dry fertilizer was on there. It's not, but I wish it was for as much as we spend. Um, but I'm able to look at my insecticide for the year, pretty much for almost the entire year, um, based on projections of what we did in 2024. We're a little bit ahead in 2025, but I added 10% of our usage, and we're pretty much right on par for finishing out this,
Yeah.
this, October to end of September, early order period. And I haven't really had to go back and buy more stuff because I planned for it last September,
Yes.
last August.
I have so many great questions about this
Yeah.
because I want to dig into a little bit of the weeds and the details of it. By the way, did the math. So if we were able to save 10% on our material cost, which is probably somewhere between 20 and 25% in this kind of business, that's a 2% bottom line savings, by the way. So and we win in the P&L really in ones and twos.
Yes.
We don't win in fives and tens. Some of you need to win in fives and tens, but that's a different story. But once we've got our business dialed and healthy, like going from 15% to 17% in your net profit is massive.
Oh, big deal.
Going from 19 to 21 is massive. Even going from 8 to 10 is massive. So like it's in these little details, and that's why I want to spend some time on it, that we win. It's in these little details that makes the difference on whether or not we can actually go buy that new piece of equipment, or we can go grow our marketing, or whether or not we can go or not. And so,
yes.
I just think it's so massive that I was like, wait, that's a lot. That's like a big chunk if I'm saving 10% on 20% of my purchase for the year. If I'm starting, so I'm listening, I'm imagining myself listening as a business owner, and I'm going, okay, I don't do this. Which vendors, like I go through my list of vendors, like, are there certain vendors I can do it with, I can't do it with? And then, how do I even approach that? Do I reach out to them and say, hey, do you guys do early ordering? Or is it that simple, or is it something more?
Aaron, you want me to take this?
It's so I think it's the most important advice I could give you. Yeah, yes, I would assume that most large, suppliers, vendors are going to have an early order option. The reason that people don't do it, I do it at our company, but I didn't always do it. And the reason you're probably not doing it as a lawn care guy is because you're not organized. That simple. Most lawn care guys, and we were this way for a while, especially when I was running the company by myself, and I had mowing division, I had lawn fertilization division, I had cleanup division, and I was doing some small projects division, and I'm running all these things. I was calling my vendor up 2 weeks before the next round and going, hey man, what you got? What's in the operation there that could check a few of these boxes that I'd like to check this round. Yeah. And the reality is that's a horrible way to run a business. Even if you take out all the savings and the things like that, the beauty of early order is it forces you to sit down with your vendor in October and say, what am I going to do next year? Plan it out. Most likely your vendor has a form that you can
have
use.
It all together. Yeah.
But we help guys, we give them forms for these things, but just do a little program builder and understand what boxes am I trying to check for the year? We have an eight round program and a 10 round program. And so, we're looking at both of those programs right now, and we're saying, hey, what worked this year? Is there something we want to tweak? Now, to your point, Dan, about the P&L, we're not making major changes in our agronomy right now at this point in our career. We're making very minor changes, and they're typically less around agronomics and more around delivery. Like, it'd be, and sometimes it's agronomics. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'd like to improve a little agronomically here. and I'm willing to impact the way I deliver this product. It might hurt me a little bit on the labor side, but help me on the agronomic side. I'm okay with that. But point being, if you're not sitting down in October to plan for 2026, you're doing it wrong. And then you can sit down with your rep, you can price these things out, you can save a little bit of money. Now, Brian, you got a pretty good sized company. I've got a pretty good sized company. So some of the things we're quoting here, you really do need to get to a place where you probably have 500 to 700
some purchasing power,
clients.
right? Where it's like, hey, we're gonna make some money here. Yeah.
The other reason, guys, we're not seeing it lawn care is the number of companies in the country. The percentage of companies that have over 1,000 clients is pretty low. Residential clients, right? There's some, but when you think about the whole industry, Dan, we know there's 700,000 companies across the country in lawn care space. A very small percentage of those have 1,000 clients or more residentially, right? Or millions of square feet of turf to treat, and so that is going to disqualify you. So if you're ordering one pallet of fertilizer at a time right now, or you're a smaller guy, you probably don't need to go do early order. However, you should still go to your vendor in October and sit down with that vendor and say, let's plan the next year. I want to buy these products in January. I want to buy these products in February. This is what I'm going to use in my rounds. The other thing that this allows.
And how big would I have to be to say, well, you're saying everybody should go plan.
Everybody should plan.
I can expect good savings and some of those other benefits
it's
as I get bigger.
Somewhere around, I'd say 50,000. And I'm probably the last person to ask, but I think it's somewhere around 50,000 a year in ordering. If your material costs are probably around that 50,000 mark, that's probably going to equate to roughly 500 to 700 clients. And again, vendor to vendor could vary. I just know my vendor at Harold's Court has said, this is when it makes sense. There's certain products that we buy that don't make sense on early order because we just don't buy enough of that product, for example. And so it's just a volume game. Now, here's my recommendation for our early order. The products that we buy, we order them and sometime in October, kind of cut off's Halloween. So, guys, get in early. Don't wait till the end of October to call your rep. You need to call them in September and start setting up time. And then they'll be delivered in November or December, right? They'll show up to your shop. The way my deal works with Harold's, again, I don't know. I'm not speaking for them, for everybody else in the country, but I usually have to pay that off sometime around June for the products I'm buying.
Correct.
Now, what I say I'm going to do every year, and I think this would be a really good practice. We'll actually do it in 2026 because we're going to be announcing a new CEO of RDS here soon. We'll kind of tease people with that. I don't know if that matters or not. But I have been an absent CEO of my company for the last 3 years, so we haven't always done this. But I would recommend that you pay 1/5 of the early order balance in January, and 1/5 in February, and 1/5 in March, and 1/5 in April. That way you don't get stuck. In June, your P&L is going to look pretty bad in June when you pay for all that. The other nice thing, in my case, I'm ordering products in October, saving, like Brian said, pretty good percentage. And that's nice, but I'm actually applying all those products and paying for them. Most of my prodiamine, all of my prodiamine's put down in February through the 1st of April. I don't have to pay for it.
So you're literally
June.
collecting all the money before you're paying for it, which is what we want.
Which is very nice. And but I will tell you that you need to be careful. You need to plan. Most people who don't like early order are poor planners because they get hit with a big bill and they didn't calculate. And,
so that's kind of where I wanted to go next, Aaron. I'm glad you brought us there. So when you think about, Brian, hey, listen, this is how I plan and forecast. I think that that's maybe one of the tricky parts of this. How do I make sure I don't order too much? But how do I make sure I order enough?
Sure.
Do you have any rules or parameters, mental tools that you're using to kind of get that right?
Well, to be honest with you, that's where a challenge. So last year here in the South in Florida, and we're Central Florida, we had chinch bug issues in St. Augustine grass. And it wasn't just us, it was the East Coast in Daytona, it was Tampa, it was St. Petersburg. Like the normal products, Arena weren't working, bifenthrin wasn't working, imidacloprid wasn't like none of these were working. And we had tons of rain on top of that. So
Mm,
usually with chinch bugs, it's a drought issue type thing. So for us, we had to kind of switch gears late in the season and really hammer them with some different products. So what we end up doing is, we had to switch gears. So you have to kind of sit down and look at, okay, for me, like some people know like the exact square footage of them treating. We have 1,700 customers, so I can tell you some things that of athletic fields we're treating or college campuses, those sizes of acreage, stuff like that. But for our residential lawns, they could be a 20,000 square foot residential lawn, or we got some retirement communities that are 3,500. So what I did is I go and my tools were using, okay, this is how many waters of, trucks of water, we're, what I noticed with, I could be wrong, Aaron, you could, um, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but, like we're a high volume when it comes to insecticides.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Whereas for warm season turf grasses, so we're putting out anywhere from 3 gallons to five
Wow.
gallons per
Per
1,000 square
thousand.
feet,
Wow.
St.
Okay.
Augustine. Whereas cool season guys are usually a
A
gallon
gallon.
or less.
Yeah. I could be, yeah. It's a big deal, Dan, when you're doing a treatment. You've got a 3 or 500 gallon tank.
Correct.
The
And
less
that's
I'm spraying water per thousand, the more that truck can treat and do.
Yep.
correct.
So we're talking about an efficiency and scale issue, right?
So that's
Um,
where kind of I was at. Whereas that's what, and I did that for the whole year. I know when we're treating weeds, we treat weeds year round, but right now in Florida, we're having major issues because we're getting tons of rain. The grass is
Mm.
growing just like the weeds are.
So like the environment isn't maybe like is going to we're going to get surprised at some point in
Oh
this
yeah, big
process.
time. Yes,
sure, you
100%.
And
can't.
so tell us more about when you pivoting in that moment. Like what are you doing to pivot? How does that affect the overall purchase, etc.?
So for us, last year, at this time in September, like I said, we're dry. I got a bunch of dry fertilizer out there. We were going to dry fertilize. Well, because of our chinch bug issues, where we were still having, and for me, if it's more than, I don't know, I would say it might have been single digits of our lawns having still chinch bug issues, insect issues at that time. That's too much for me. Just me as a business owner, is telling our customers this is what we're going to do. So we switched gears then, and it even led into our early order for this year, where we were using a lot of um, product. I don't even know what the percentage was, but we went to using a Celiprin Extra in May, and it was a $41,000 increase in May for me to the previous May. But it set us up for success. Like we haven't had any sod webworm, armyworm issues. We haven't had any chinch bug issues. And so it's kind of got us back on track as far as,
Yeah.
okay, this is kind of where we're at.
Like you're
So
at your standard again of what you want to do quality
yes,
wise.
and I feel even though I had to spend more money, I had to pivot. Long term, I have less callbacks. I have so much like it's been, for our size company, um, it's been such a relief to not have to deal with the mental stress, because my guys will freak out too because they know our standard and they're like, man, we got this going on. And this going on and this going on, and I'm not really hearing that this time of year, which
Yeah,
is
that's
great.
great.
One
That's
one
great.
thing I do to avoid over ordering or preparing for the order is we do use a CRM and have since 2011, and we've layered it as
Service
we enter
autopilot,
clients.
yeah.
Yeah, we use Service Autopilot. But I can go in right now and tell you exactly how many square feet. Well, it's rough, but I can tell you how many square feet we have through that. And then, but what I do is so our guys will go through and we keep inventory of how many products we have, and we keep a running inventory. So I have a weekly 1 hour production meeting with my production manager, and one of his KPIs or one of his sheets to bring into that meeting is updated inventory that we just kind of look at. We're forecasting what are we going to do in the next couple weeks, next 90 days kind of thing, or next 30 days. And then, but before early order, we'll really nail that inventory down. And then my vendor, Court from Harrell's, will come in and say, hey, here's how much you ordered last year. And I'll say, well, here's what I have left. So let's adjust that, by this many. Or I might say, he's like, yeah, I early ordered you 20 of those, but you actually ordered 30 of them. And I'll be like, yeah, and I don't have any left right now. So, that just helps us,
correct,
determine. So every year we get more and more dialed in. And the thing I love about, if your vendor is not, I love this about my vendor Court is he's asking me those questions. He's not saying, hey, you ordered 20 last year, let's do your 20 again. He's saying, hey, you ordered 20, tell me how many you have left, because I don't want to order, and so there's just a really good way of checking that. And then, once we go through that, then we know what we need, and we only order the things that we know are going to be used in a blanket application. We've gotten to a place now, we do a good bit of spot treating in our turf. It's a cool season turf, and when it gets hot, I can't blanket herbicide stress turf in our market. So, that's the hardest one for us because I don't know how many square feet I'm going to spot spray. I can't predict that, but we've gotten better because we know we run these products during these certain times, and we know how many we ordered, how many we have left. And so we're getting better each year. So your first year is a little bit of a crapshoot. And I would be a little conservative the first year, and then each year we just get a little better.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. Better to over order or under order?
It depends what the shortfall or,
Yeah.
it depends.
All right. So I'll answer this question for how I,
because I'm picturing myself sitting there going, I'm planning on growing by 15% next year.
I'd rather over.
You'd rather over.
Oh yeah.
It really depends on your cash position. And also it's a personality thing. I'm probably going to go a little under and say, Court, I'm gonna grab an extra bottle or two. My guys will. But I'm a little bit like stingy with my product money, and Court probably don't like that. But if you're a stressed out cash poor business, you better not overorder.
Correct.
Because that's cash sitting on your shelf.
Correct. Yeah.
If you are just, you got, your 2 to 3 months cash reserve sitting on the bank, overorder a little bit so you're not running down there grabbing a bottle or two.
Because that's costing you money too, right?
Yeah.
If you're sending somebody down there.
And then it really boils down to personality, right? If your personality is one to, it kind of drive you nuts to see a bunch of stuff sitting there, which is kind of me, we better underorder a little bit. Brian's team is probably like, hey man, we know we need to overorder because boss hates when, we run out of something. Yeah. And I will say this, it can be death by 1,000 cuts for you to run to the supply house all the time to pick up stuff. So we don't like to have to do that. But I also don't love to see a bunch of products sitting on my shelves for more than 12 months.
Another benefit of early order for us is, I don't know if it's like it in your market, but Harold's will keep our stuff until we need it. So for us, Brad Babbage, my guy, we'll order it and I'll leave it there and until I need it. So I didn't get the Accelerant Extra until, I want to say we put it out in May, so I didn't get it until April. So it's sat in their warehouse.
So you're not having to worry about storage.
No.
and
Now
pay for that extra storage space. That's cool.
Shout out to Brad Babis. Brad's one of my
Babich,
favorites. Got to hang out with him quite a bit. But Brian's a benefit of being at the home office there. That's probably a benefit of that. I'm near a big center, so I can do a little bit of that. There are, the cool thing about, our partners at Harrell's and what they're able to do is they ship all over the country.
Yep.
So if you're not near a center, they'll ship it to you. And you could probably work something out to where they'll ship you, as you need it. Again, all those things, we can't speak for them on those things, but certainly take what you can afford to hold on to, and take what you can store. That's the other thing. Like if you're not able to, if you've got a storage issue, early order may or may not be a good thing for you if you don't have a way to properly store the product.
That's a good point. The storage is
so,
important.
And listen, do not go buy, you've got a nice shop that you're spending $1,500, $2,000 a month on. Don't go buy a $10,000 shop so you can early order and store product. That's not smart.
Yeah, don't spend 8% of your income to save 2%, right? That's not smart. So final question, and then we'll give you some party shots, both of you. One of the things that I find, it's a little bit like a healthy financial rhythm. It's like a great quarterly planning rhythm. Like to have some rhythms in all of this, whether, you mentioned, Aaron, your weekly production meeting, that's a little bit of a rhythm of how we keep our inventory. Brian, I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of your rhythms around inventory, around ordering? Are there dates on your calendar where it's like second Thursday of September, I schedule my meeting? Is there some stuff like that? Is it loose? Is it firm? Tell me more about how you make sure this shows up in your regular life.
I think for us, because I'm still involved every day, I may not be in the field every day, but I'm still involved every day. I don't really have a set like a second Thursday of every month or whatever. We like Aaron, his rounds are 8 or 10, ours are 12. So we know what we're doing and when we're doing it. So for us, it's easy. For me, it's easy to say, okay, we're going to use this product, whether it's a herbicide or a pre-emergent, stuff like that. We're going to use this product in this month. So we kind of know, and some of these products aren't in early order that we're buying. I'm sure Aaron can tell you that as well. Some of the products, you're just not buying enough of them, or you're not using them frequent enough to get that savings or advantage. But I will say that Harrell's, they have a lot of stuff on their liquid programs that we use. That this was the first year I early ordered some of their stuff, some of their tall turf, and some of their Iron MG. I ordered it in 250-gallon totes, and we were able to do so. That was a first for us instead of using 2.5-gallon jugs, cool. Stuff like that.
So really, the rhythm for you is, you said, hey, it's kind of always on your mind.
Always, yeah.
Always on my mind. And then sometime in September, October, we're having that meeting. We're nailing out our plan for the following year. Yep. And once we have that plan in place, I feel really confident. We make the order. We're making payments throughout the year. And then, round by round, I'm just doing a quick double check to go, all right, are we set up? Are you one round ahead of schedule, or 2 rounds ahead of schedule, or 4 rounds ahead? Does that make sense? Like, are you thinking about the next round? All right, check the inventory. Are we ready for
yes.
If we're in round 1, we're ready for round 2, or is it further out than that?
For me, well, I don't have dry fertilizer sitting here. I have a couple pallets, but other than that, everything, whether it's a herbicide or an insecticide or a fungicide, we're usually several rounds ahead.
Okay.
As far as that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Aaron, anything you'd add to that? Because I think it's fair. Like, it's like, I love that you said it's always on my mind.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't like, you got to create space in your mind for that. And that's probably because you have a great team, like we talked about earlier, all that.
For me, it's different because I'm so absent, and I've been forced to set up rhythms. And we implemented a production planning meeting this year. We're trying to get under an hour, and it's getting there. But we're looking at, for example, I'm looking at our form, we had 1,159 jobs to complete in the next 25 days. We had, 332 budgeted hours. We know how many square feet each one of these services needed, and we know how much revenue it's going to generate too. So we kind of are looking at those things, and we'll update that each week. So I'll be able to see, and I just have tabs on a spreadsheet for this meeting, and I'm looking at, for example, we have 338 7-round basic fescue clients to treat. It's 3,115,000 square feet. It's 116 man hours, and it's $33,693. Right? Like, it just gives me an idea of, and I can back into that, and I can say, well, 116 budget hours divided by 6.5 is 17 days for one guy. Well, I have 4 technicians that are going to do that. We can complete that work in 4.5 days. So I'm going with my manager. I'm saying, hey, how are we going to get this done? Do we have enough technicians? By the way, I get this question a lot on Facebook. How do I know when I need a new technician? Well, can the technicians you have today get done the work that you have for the next 60 days effectively? What we want is, we want that sweet spot where we're like, yes, 4 technicians can work 35 to 40 hours a week. They can produce, $6,000 to $7,000, $8,000 a week, depending on how they work, and they can be steady, right? We don't want them to ebb and flow with work. We want them to just be right along here, right? And so, to me, that Thursday, it's Thursday mornings at 9:15. Brooks and I will sit down and we'll go through this, and that's been very helpful to Brooks because he's in charge of kind of scheduling this stuff, and I've got a lot of knowledge that I can, in that 1 hour, I can say, oh, did you think about, hey, we've got to do some renovation here. That's a little different element here, Brooks. How are we preparing for that? Because we got to pull one of our 4 guys out to do that. And that's going to now impact. We're not dividing by 4 when I do that math. We're dividing by 3 now. So how does that impact things? And so I have to be a little more, dialed in because I spend 99% of my time not there. And so it's forced me. What's been cool about that is, even if you are able to be there all the time, I recommend you implement some of these because you'll be so much more efficient with your time. And I didn't have to be for years. I could kind of, let that float. And I did. And when I removed myself, it forced me to build some of these, which I highly recommend people using. And again, I think, we're really big on understanding budgeted time in our program, and for our guys, they're paid based on that. And so, we're looking at not just the agronomics of it, but how many hours are budgeted, how much revenue's there. Again, we can say, all we want to, that we're all about quality, and we want, we don't care how much they get done, but it, our rent's going to be paid every 30 days. Health insurance. I tell my guys all the time, like, listen, your health insurance isn't free. We pay 75% of it, but we do that through production, right? Yeah. So anyway, I think it's just a good rhythm for me and probably for others.
Well, I appreciate it. Our time's about up. Honestly, this has been really educational for me. Brian, what an honor to be with you. Like, I can tell you're our kind of CEO, and you're doing it right. And that's a really, really cool thing. And it's these little nuanced details that, again, we win by 1% and 2% here and there. And we win in our time and our efficiency. By the way, we didn't really talk about the time benefit of having this stuff just kind of showing up rather than us having to go out and, every time we go to that, site 1 or whatever, we're also stopping at the gas station, and it's just like the whole process takes time. And so
what's really cool, Dan, real quick on this,
you
just brought something up that I wanted to say. On my form, I have my own spreadsheet, and it's every round is broken out into what am I going to apply, what's it cost, what's the coverage of it, what's it cost me per 1,000, right? That's how I look at it. But in that spreadsheet, so for example, in round 1, we put out something called 704 with lime attached to it. And there's a little note in here that gives a description of what that product does for the turf and, why we're using that product. Very beneficial to my managers and people who are going to be answering questions about this. They can educate the team. But also when we start dealing with liquid products, I can put in there the rate per thousand that we're going to mix that. And so what's really, really cool here is I sit down with Court once a year, and then my production manager, we have a little group text thread, and he'll say, hey, Court, it's time for me to order the next round. Here's what I need. Here's my rates. Here's my square footages. And I don't have to go in all the time and ask. I do some checks with my weekly check, but it is just, I'm able to hand that off. So if you build that system well enough, you deal with it as an owner one time a year. And listen, if you're an owner and you're trying to scale a lawn care business, you're not going to become the best or the most profitable lawn care business through agronomy. Agronomy is very important. I'm going to give you this analogy that I heard this week. It was talking about a really famous, it was some guy on a reel that was talking about a really high-end restaurants. And he said, listen, you can have the best chef in New York City and the worst front of house experience, and they're not coming back.
Correct.
You can have an average chef in the kitchen and an amazing front of house experience, and you'll keep coming back.
Correct.
And so, your agronomics is important, but I do not believe in lawn care that agronomics is going to make you wealthy or make your company successful. It could hurt you. It can't be bad.
Yeah, it can't be the worst chef in New York.
It can't be the worst. But business owners, you're going to win through understanding systems and building out what we're talking about and, teaching other people how to hand off that agronomics. And I highly encourage my production manager to be eating and sleeping and breathing agronomics because that's his job. That's what he touches the most, right? But as a business owner, I need to be on the business and growing the business and thinking about all the other things that make up the business. And so it's just something I saw this form, Dan, in front of me, and I just wanted to kind of share that.
Perfect parting shot, Aaron. Perfect parting shot. Brian, parting shot.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Hey.
You start somewhere and you finish somewhere, and hopefully by the time you finish, you've grown something, you've touched people's lives, and for us it's which I purposely want to be different than the national lawn care companies. Like I set out to be. I was groomed by mom and pop, and we're a mom and pop shop, but we're very diversified. We can take care of any client, any clientele. So you get that hometown small business feel, but you're still, like you said, I mean, that's a great analogy. Like you could have an average chef, a great front of house, and my wife and I are going back. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the customer service. It's what you're able, years ago we used to deal with if there was an issue with customers, and we would just let the customer vent. I haven't had this personal experience with our business in a long time, but a customer will be super frustrated. You let them talk, you let them vent, and then your answer is, okay, what can we do to solve the problem? And that's, for me, that's kind of encompasses growing, towards the future in a healthy way. And Rome wasn't built in a day.
Amen. Amen. I think I read this, I don't know where it came from, but somebody said Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And I do love that spirit of that. It says, hey, we can't wait to go out and start implementing some of these pieces. Let's be patient in the long-term results,
Yes,
but impatient in what we can get done today. And if we blend those two worlds, we're going to turn, what seemed like just a little pipe dream in 13 years ago or 27, 28 years ago into something that's a really outstanding business we get to be proud of, a really outstanding business we get to employ people and have great people be a part of. And I love this little brick it's just a brick in the overall scheme, which is the EOP, but it really turns this purchasing process into an opportunity, and for us to take advantage of that opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Lawn Care CEO podcast. And as always, go do more good.